Make me yours or leave my bed empty. The alien Viscountess barked. Collision course. The alarm screamed through the cockpit as Darian Wade fought the controls of his dying cargo transport. Smoke filled the cabin, sparks flew from failing systems, and the moon's gravitational pull dragged him down like an iron fist. He'd been hauling medical supplies across the sector when the engine core cracked. Bad luck piled on worse fortune. "Come on, you piece of junk," he growled, muscles straining as he tried to angle toward anything that looked like open ground. Through the viewport, he glimpsed manicured gardens, crystalline towers, and elegant landing platforms that definitely didn't belong to any public station. Private estate. Restricted airspace. He was so dead. The ship hit hard, skidding through what looked like an ornamental hedge maze before finally grinding to a halt in a shower of sparks and torn metal. Darian sat there for a moment, breathing hard, grateful to be alive. Then the guards arrived. 6 of them in black armor surrounded his ship before he even got the hatch open. They hauled him out roughly, confiscated his tools and ID, and marched him through gardens so perfect they looked painted. The estate sprawled across the moon like a crown jewel, all white stone and floating architecture that defied physics. They brought him to a throne room that was more art gallery than court. And there, lounging on a seat carved from single piece of translucent crystal, sat the most breathtaking woman Darian had ever seen. Lady Zephyra Calith studied him with eyes like liquid amber. Her skin was unlike anything human, smooth as pearl with an inner luminescence that shifted subtly, currently a cool silver that reminded him of moonlight on water. Her hair fell past her shoulders in a platinum cascade that seemed to float slightly, as though gravity affected it differently. She wore a gown of deep midnight blue that contrasted beautifully with her pale radiance. "You have damaged my private gardens," she said, her voice carrying the crisp accent of old nobility. "Explain yourself quickly, or my guards will ensure you regret the trespass." Most men would have fallen to their knees, babbling apologies. Darian just met her gaze steadily, noting the faint curiosity beneath her cold exterior. "Engine failure, my lady. Not exactly my first choice for a crash site, but I work with what physics gives me." A flicker of something, surprise? Amusement, crossed her perfect features. Her skin shimmered slightly warmer. "You dare speak to me without even bowing? Would you prefer I lie?" Darian kept his voice respectful but firm. "I'm sorry about your hedges. Send me the repair bill. But I'm not going to grovel over an accident." The guards tensed, hands moving to weapons. But Zephyra raised one elegant hand, her amber eyes never leaving his face. For the first time in decades, someone had looked at her like she was just a person, not a monument to worship or a prize to claim. "Confine him to the East Guest Wing," she ordered, her tone unreadable. "I will decide his fate tomorrow." As the guards led him away, Darian glanced back once. Zephyra was still watching him, and her skin had warmed to the faintest hint of rose. The midnight proposition. Darian spent the day in a guest suite that was larger than his entire apartment back on the station. He tried the door, locked from outside. Tried the window, 3 stories up with guards patrolling below. So he showered, ate the food that appeared on silent carts, and waited. Midnight came with a soft chime at his door. A servant stood there, face carefully blank. "Lady Zephyra requests your presence in the observatory. Immediately." The observatory sat at the estate's highest point, a dome of transparent crystal that revealed the star-swept void above. Zephyra stood at the center, silhouetted against infinity. She changed from her formal gown into something that made Darian's breath catch. Delicate chains of some luminous metal draped across her body, over shoulders, around her waist, between her breasts, leaving vast expanses of that pearl-like skin exposed. The chains caught and reflected her inner light, creating patterns that shifted with every breath. Her hair floated loose around her shoulders, and her skin had deepened to a warm silver touched with the faintest rose. "Do you know who I am, pilot?" She turned slowly, her amber eyes finding his in the starlight. "Lady Zephyra Calith, ruler of this moon, heiress to House Calith of Luminara." Darian's voice came out rougher than intended, and reportedly the most untouchable woman in 7 sectors. Something flickered across her face, pain, loneliness, both. Untouchable. Yes. That is what they call me. She moved closer, circling him like she had in the throne room, but this time there was hunger beneath the predatory grace. Do you know why? You're waiting for someone worth touching. She stopped directly in front of him, close enough that he could see the subtle play of light beneath her skin, like moonbeams dancing just under the surface. Her scent reached him, something like night-blooming flowers and ozone. Every suitor who has approached me wanted the title, the wealth, the prestige. Her voice dropped lower, trembling slightly. Not one ever looked at me the way you did today. Like I was just a woman. Darian swallowed hard. You are just a woman. A beautiful, lonely woman wearing a crown that's too heavy. Her skin flared brighter, warmth spreading across her cheeks in visible waves. Stay with me tonight, she whispered, and beneath the commanding tone was a desperate plea. Or I will have you escorted off-world at dawn, and I will spend another century alone in this empty estate, in this empty bed, wondering what it might have been like to be touched by someone who saw me. He could have left. Should have left. This was dangerous. Nobility didn't mix with cargo runners. But the vulnerability in her amber eyes destroyed his resistance. I'll stay, he said quietly, reaching up to cup her face with both hands. Her skin was warm, impossibly smooth, and it brightened at his touch. But not because you ordered it, Zephyra. Because I want to know the woman, not the title. The simple tenderness shattered something in her carefully constructed walls. She trembled, her skin flaring through pink and rose before settling into a deep, warm coral. I don't know how, she admitted in a small voice. I've never, not like this. Darian smiled, gentle and genuine. Then we'll figure it out together. He kissed her softly, carefully, like she was something precious. She gasped against his mouth, her hands clutching his shoulders as centuries of isolation cracked open. Her skin blazed brighter with every touch, every tender exploration, colors rippling across her like auroras as he showed her what it meant to be wanted for herself alone. The claiming. Darian took his time, ignoring Zephyra's initial attempts to command the pace. When she tried to order him to hurry, he simply kissed her quiet, murmuring against her lips that she'd waited a century, she could wait another hour to do this right. The chains she wore were cool against his fingers as he carefully unhooked them, letting each piece fall away with soft musical chimes. Beneath them, her skin glowed brighter, shifting from coral to deep rose as his hands learned her curves. She was all elegant lines and soft warmth, responsive in ways that made her gasp in surprise. You're allowed to just feel, he told her, trailing kisses down her throat. No orders. No commands. Just feel. She shuddered, her imperious control crumbling. Her hands tangled in his hair, surprisingly desperate, surprisingly tender. When he lifted her, she wrapped around him instinctively, and he carried her to the wide lounging platform covered in silk cushions that served as her private retreat. The starlight through the crystal dome painted them in silver and shadow. Darian laid her down gently, covering her body with his own, taking his time to worship every inch of luminous skin. He found the places that made her arch and moan, the curve where her neck met her shoulder, the sensitive hollow of her hip, the inside of her wrist where her pulse beat visibly beneath pearl skin. Darian, she breathed his name like a prayer, like a plea. Her skin was cycling through shades of pink and magenta now, brightening with every touch. Please. I've got you, he promised, finally giving them both what they needed. The joining was slow, careful, overwhelming. Zephyra cried out, her back arching as sensations she'd only imagined crashed through her. Darian moved with patient intensity, watching her face, learning what made her gasp and what made her melt. Her skin grew brighter and brighter, shifting through roses and crimsons as pleasure built. She'd spent a century in control, and now she surrendered it willingly. Her nails traced down his back, her voice breaking on his name, all nobility and command stripped away until she was just a woman being loved thoroughly and well. He kissed away the tears that leaked from her closed eyes, murmured praise against her temple, held her like she was everything. When the peak finally came, it crashed over them both like a supernova. Zephyra screamed his name, not his title, not his station, just his name, and her entire body erupted in brilliant fuchsia light so bright it illuminated the entire observatory. The light pulsed, flared, then slowly settled into something softer. As their breathing calmed, Darian looked down at her in wonder. Her skin no longer shifted with her emotions. Instead, it glowed a permanent, warm rose gold, like sunrise over copper, radiating from within. The color was fixed, unchanging, beautiful. Zephyra stared at her hands, watching the rose gold light pulse gently with her heartbeat. "The bonding mark," she whispered in awe. "I never thought. It's irreversible." "Is that a problem?" Darian asked carefully. She looked up at him, amber eyes bright with tears and joy. "Every noble in the sector will know what we've done. They'll know I've chosen you permanently. It will cause scandals, political nightmares, challenges to my authority." He started to pull away, but she grabbed him fiercely, wrapping herself around him. "And I don't care about any of it," she finished, kissing him desperately. "I don't care. You're mine now, Darian Wade. Mine." "Possessive," he teased gently, but his arms tightened around her. "Absolutely," she agreed, and for the first time in a century, she smiled with genuine happiness. They stayed tangled together as the stars wheeled overhead, her skin glowing rose gold against his darker tones, two people from different worlds who'd found something neither had expected to find. By dawn, when her chief advisor came looking for her with urgent estate matters, he found his lady wearing only a pilot's worn shirt, skin glowing with the unmistakable mark of permanent bonding, fast asleep in the arms of a common cargo runner. The scandal was about to begin. Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. The morning after. The chief advisor, a stern man named Corvan who'd served House Caliph for 40 years, stood frozen in the observatory doorway. His lady, the untouchable Viscountess Zephyra, lay curled against a half-dressed human pilot, her skin radiating the unmistakable rose gold of a completed bond. The discarded chains lay scattered across the floor like fallen stars. "My lady," Corvan's voice cracked slightly, "the morning council awaits your—" "Cancel it," Zephyra murmured without opening her eyes, burrowing deeper into Darian's warmth. "My lady, you cannot simply—" "I can, and I will." She finally lifted her head, amber eyes sharp despite her obvious contentment. Her glowing skin left no room for denial about what had occurred. "Clear the main hall. I'll address the household in 1 hour. And Corvan? Have someone bring proper clothing for my consort." The title hung in the air like a thunderclap. Corvan's face went through several shades of pale before he bowed stiffly and retreated. Darian stirred, consciousness returning slowly. "Did you just call me your consort? Would you prefer mate? Bonded partner?" Zephyra traced patterns on his chest, her glowing fingers leaving trails of warmth. "The bond is permanent, Darian. In my culture, what we did last night is as binding as any legal ceremony. More so, actually. You're stuck with me." He caught her hand, bringing it to his lips. "I can think of worse fates than being stuck with a beautiful woman who glows when I touch her." She flushed brighter, the rose gold intensifying. "Stop that. I need to maintain some dignity for the announcement." "What announcement?" "The one where I tell my entire household that I've bonded with a cargo pilot I met yesterday, obviously." She said it so matter-of-factly that Darian almost missed the tremor of nervousness beneath. An hour later, Zephyra swept into the main hall with Darian at her side. She'd dressed in formal robes of deep purple, but her glowing skin was visible at throat and wrists, impossible to hide. Darian wore clothes that fit but felt too expensive, though he'd refused the formal jacket in favor of his own worn leather one. The assembled household, advisors, servants, guards, distant relatives, stared in open shock. Lady Zephyra had never appeared before them with her skin anything but cool silver. The warm rose gold announced her changed status to everyone who understood Luminaran biology. "I'm sure you've all noticed," Zephyra began, her voice carrying that aristocratic authority even as she reached for Darian's hand, "that I have completed a bonding." Whispers erupted. An elderly nobleman in the front row stood abruptly. "My lady, this is unprecedented. A human, a commoner, without any negotiation of contracts or—" "Lord Hector," Zephyra interrupted smoothly, "I have spent 117 years rejecting every suitable match you and others presented. I chose my own mate, as is my right as head of this house." But the impropriety, the scandal, your reputation. My reputation as the loneliest woman in 7 sectors. Her voice went cold, though her skin still glowed warm. I think I prefer my new reputation, thank you. Darian squeezed her hand gently, then stepped forward. I know this isn't what any of you expected. Trust me, I'm just as surprised. But I'm not going anywhere, and I'm not here for her title or her wealth. He met the hostile gazes steadily. I'm here because she's brilliant and strong, and she deserves to be happy. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me. Another nobleman rose, hand moving toward his ceremonial blade. Perhaps a duel would settle. Zephyra moved faster than thought, placing herself between Darian and the threat. Her skin flared brilliant magenta, her eyes blazing. Touch him, and I will personally ensure you never threaten anyone again, Lord Vareth. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. This was the Ice Queen they all knew, the untouchable noblewoman who'd frozen out every advance. Except now she was defending a human pilot with the ferocity of a bonded mate. Vareth sat down abruptly. Zephyra turned, her skin gradually cooling back to rose gold as she looked at her assembled household. Let me be absolutely clear. Darian Wade is my chosen consort. He will be treated with the respect due to that position. Anyone who objects may submit their formal resignation, and I will accept it without prejudice. But this bond is permanent, and I will not tolerate any challenges to it. Then, in a move that scandalized half the room and impressed the other half, she simply sat down in the nearest chair and pulled Darian into her lap, curling against him like a contented cat. The pure domesticity of it, the powerful Lady Zephyra cuddling her common-born mate in front of her entire court, made the statement clearer than any speech could have. Corvan cleared his throat diplomatically. Shall I have the guest wing converted to proper consort quarters, my lady? No need, Zephyra said lazily, playing with Darian's fingers. He'll be staying in my chambers. Though you can move his belongings from that wreck of a ship. About my ship, Darian started. Already being repaired, she assured him. Well, repaired and upgraded. You can't be bonded to a Caliph and fly around in something held together with spare parts and optimism. Despite the tension, several people smiled at that. Slowly, the household began to adjust to this new reality. Their untouchable lady had finally been touched, had chosen her own mate, and clearly had no intention of giving him up. As the meeting dispersed, Corvan approached quietly. My lady, the sector news services are already requesting statements about your change in status. Your skin is rather difficult to hide. Zephyra looked down at her glowing hands, then at Darian, then smiled, a real, genuine smile that made her look years younger. Tell them the truth, Corvan. Tell them Lady Zephyra Calith has bonded with the man she loves, and anyone who doesn't like it can take it up with House Calith directly. As you wish, my lady. As they left the hall, Darian pulled her close. Are you sure about this? The scandal, the politics. I've never been more sure of anything, she interrupted, kissing him softly. I was dying slowly in my perfect, empty life. You brought me back to life in one night. Let them gossip. I have what matters. Her skin glowed brighter, pulsing in time with her heartbeat, and Darian realized he'd never seen anything more beautiful than this powerful woman choosing him over everything else her world offered. New horizons. 3 weeks later, Darian stood in the private hangar, staring at what had once been his battered cargo transport. The ship was barely recognizable. The hull had been replaced with reinforced alloy that gleamed like polished silver. The engines were state-of-the-art military grade. The interior had been completely rebuilt, but his old captain's chair remained, worn leather and all, now mounted on the new bridge. You kept my chair, he said as Zephyra appeared beside him, her skin glowing softly in the hangar lights. Of course I did. She leaned against him naturally, a gesture that would have been unthinkable a month ago. It's where you belong. I just made sure the ship around it was worthy of a consort to house Calith. The house crest had been added to the hull, elegant but not ostentatious. Darian traced the design with his fingers. I'm still getting used to that word. Consort. Would you prefer husband? Because Corvan has been hinting heavily that we should have a formal ceremony for the more traditional houses. She made a face. 3 days of rituals and about 400 guests I don't particularly like. Do you want a ceremony? Zephyra looked at her glowing hands, the permanent rose gold that marked her as bonded. I already had my ceremony. When you made me yours in that observatory under the stars. Everything else is just paperwork. He kissed her temple. Then we skip the ceremony and disappoint 400 people you don't like anyway. See, this is why I kept you. She grinned, then sobered slightly. Though we should probably do a tour of the major houses. Let them see that I'm genuinely happy, that this wasn't some impulse or political maneuver. The past 3 weeks had been a whirlwind. The sector news had exploded with the story of the untouchable Lady Zephyra bonding with a human cargo pilot. Some outlets called it romantic. Others called it scandalous. A few suggested she'd lost her mind. Zephyra had ignored all of it, spending her days managing her estate and her nights tangled with Darian, learning what it meant to not be alone. They'd fallen into an easy rhythm. She taught him the intricacies of noble politics. He taught her how to laugh at herself. She attended councils with her skin glowing rose gold, his hand in hers. He sat through formal dinners and learned which fork to use, while she learned to appreciate simple meals eaten sitting on the floor of his ship. The nobility had slowly begun to accept the reality. Some genuinely warmed to Darian's straightforward nature. Others simply recognized that Zephyra wasn't changing her mind and adjusted accordingly. A few remained hostile, but their numbers dwindled as it became clear that she was genuinely happier. I got a message from my old crew, Darian said, pulling up a data pad. They want to know if I'm really retiring from cargo running to be a kept man. Zephyra laughed, the sound still surprising and delightful to both of them. A kept man? With a fully upgraded ship and access to the Calith trade routes? Tell them you're starting your own luxury freight company and you're hiring. Are you serious? Why not? You love flying. I love watching you happy. We have the resources. Besides, she leaned in conspiratorially, I've been reviewing the sector freight contracts, and there's a massive gap in the market for secure, high-end transport. You could fill it. He stared at her. You've been planning this. I've been paying attention to what makes you light up when you talk. She traced his jaw with glowing fingers. That's what people who love each other do, isn't it? Love, he repeated softly. They danced around the word, but neither had said it directly. Her skin flared brighter, cycling through shades of pink before settling back to rose gold. Yes, love. Did you think this was just about the bonding? I love you, Darian Wade. I love your stubbornness and your kindness and the way you see me as just Zephyra, not Lady Calith. I love waking up next to you and falling asleep in your arms and arguing with you about stupid things. I love everything about this life we're building. He pulled her close, kissing her thoroughly. I love you too. My glowing, impossible, perfect lady who crashed into my life as hard as I crashed into her garden. They stood there in the hangar, wrapped around each other, her skin pulsing with warmth and happiness. In the distance, they could hear the estate coming to life. Servants preparing meals, guards changing shifts, Corvan probably looking for them with some urgent matter that could definitely wait. Come on, Zephyra said, taking his hand. I want to show you something. She led him through the estate to a wing he'd never explored. The rooms here were smaller, cozier, with wide windows overlooking the gardens. I've been having this prepared, she explained. Our private quarters. Separate from the formal ladies' chambers. No servants unless we call them. No councils or politics or expectations. Just us. The main room had shelves waiting to be filled, comfortable furniture, and an enormous bed positioned to catch the sunrise. It was elegant but livable, grand but warm, a perfect blend of her world and his. It's perfect, he said honestly. I wanted you to have a home, not just a room in my estate. She leaned into him. I wanted us to have a home. They spent the rest of the day arranging the space, his few personal items mixed with her carefully chosen decorations. She insisted on displaying a photo from his old ship's log, a shot of him grinning in the captain's chair. He insisted on keeping the first chain she'd worn that night in the observatory, hung on the wall like art. That evening, they hosted a small dinner, just the advisors who'd been genuinely supportive. Zephyra presided in a simple gown, her glowing skin the only adornment she needed, with Darian at her side in his leather jacket and new formal pants. They laughed and told stories and made plans for the future. Later, in their new bed, she curled against him in the darkness. Her skin provided a soft rose-gold glow, enough to see by. "Are you happy?" she asked quietly. "Happier than I ever thought possible," he answered honestly. "You?" "I didn't know I could feel this much," she admitted. "For so long, I was just empty, going through motions. And then you crashed into my garden and my life and broke open everything I'd locked away." He kissed her forehead, her cheek, her lips. "Best crash landing I ever made." She laughed, then sighed contentedly. "The sector probably still thinks I've lost my mind. The Ice Queen who melted for a cargo pilot. Let them think what they want." He pulled her closer. "We know the truth. Sometimes the right person comes from the most unexpected place. Crashing through my hedges in a failing transport." "Exactly." Her skin pulsed brighter with happiness, and she kissed him slowly, deeply, pouring everything she felt into it. Outside, the estate settled into night. The empty bed that had haunted her for over a century now held two people who'd found each other against all odds, who'd chosen each other despite every reason not to. In the morning, Zephyra would return to being Lady Caliph, managing trade routes and political alliances and the thousand details of running a house. But she'd do it with rose-gold skin that announced her happiness to anyone who looked. With a partner who saw her as a woman first and a title second. With a home that was finally, truly, filled with warmth and love and laughter. Darian would take his upgraded ship and start building something new, not running from life anymore but building toward something. With the backing of House Caliph and the support of the woman he loved. They'd both been alone in their own ways, her in her gilded cage, him in the empty void of space. Now they'd found something neither had been looking for but both desperately needed. As they drifted towards sleep, tangled together, Zephyra whispered, "Thank you for crashing into my life." "Thank you for not executing me for it," he murmured back. She laughed softly, and her skin glowed brighter, lighting the room with the warmth of a love that had changed everything. The untouchable lady had been touched. The lonely pilot had found a home. And somewhere in the vast, star-swept sector, people were still gossiping about the scandal. But in their bed, in their home, none of that mattered at all. The end.